Quick introduction, I'm Dan Dumbacher, the Executive Director of the American Institute of Aeronautics and Astronautics, and I want to welcome you to today's VIP Luncheon, sponsored by L3 Harris. We greatly appreciate their bronze sponsorship, and we also want to welcome everyone here to the 70th International Astronautical Congress. Thank you for being here, thank you for participating, and please take advantage of great events such as this so that we can all help build the space community and build it further. Without further ado, I'd like to make two introductions. Number one, Bill Gattle will be here from Harris Corporation to talk a little bit. He is also joined by Rob Mitrevsky also from L3 Harris. And with that, I'll turn it over to Bill, and he can talk a little bit about L3. And again, Bill, want to thank you and L3 Harris for this great sponsorship of this lunch. So thank you very much.
All right, I can honestly say I have never spoken in a room this long and this narrow. But welcome to the L3 Harris sponsored luncheon of IAC. 70 years, a long time, and thanks for hosting it in America this year. I want to thank you all for being here. It's an honor to speak with you. This is what I'll promise you. I am not going to give you an L3 Harris advertisement. That should bring applause from somebody. We are not going to just tell you all about that. Second, I hope to give you some perspective, at least from my vantage point, of what's happening in this market, and give you all a little bit of an idea of where we think it's going. So today's about perspective. It's about taking a look at where this market is. It's about where we are and how did we get here, and about what will keep it going and with the momentum it currently has. I think if you look at today, we are probably in the most unique space market that we've ever seen since the Apollo days, which of course we just celebrated the 50 years of Apollo here a few minutes ago and the other session. It is amazing for me to watch the fact that this market has taken off really in the last 5 to 7 years. You think about what you just saw. You saw a very new space policy. You saw Vice President Pence here. You've seen an all-female walk in space yesterday, as well as they gave their press conference today. We celebrated 50 years of the space walk of Apollo. The space market is basically in the mainstream of our world today. I was watching the TV the other day, and I saw on the TV somebody advertising a brand new type of TV. I think it was an LG TV, and it showed a rocket launch. So if you're that kind of mainstream, you know that we've made it again as the space market. It's good to be cool again. This market dynamic is probably different than I have ever seen before. If you look at it, we've seen broad market acceleration across the board. We're seeing budgets that are higher than they've ever been in the space market. We also have seen the commercial market come on very strong, which of course has been talked about numerous times here, and new entrants. And also we've seen a lot of mergers and acquisitions, especially with our company, with L3 and Harris coming together, becoming the 6th largest prime, aerospace and defense prime. And what's happening right now is the whole market is shifting. What used to be the traditional aerospace and defense primes is now being broadened with new entrants. You have people, hundreds of companies that have been mentioned from Silicon Valley, from across the different businesses, bringing in new ideas that we have embraced here in the last few years. It's changing the economics of space at this point. And again, it's probably one of the most exciting times and one of the exciting markets to be in. We are also seeing major advances in manufacturing. You have everything from 3D and additive manufacturing. You have the DevOps environment, which we've come up with, as well as in-space manufacturing. So bottom line is, if you're not excited about where space is right now, you might want to check and see if your exciter is on, because this is about as exciting as it gets in the space market, and it has been an amazing road over the last couple years. So I just want to touch on why I think it has happened. And I'm going to cover 4 things I think of why we are where we are, because if I go back 10 years ago, it was hard to get people to attend space conferences. It actually was pretty lean. It was just the folks that were deep into space that would attend. And now you look at the people who are here, the amount of attention it's got. So what has caused that to be different? First of all, I'll just tell you that real challenges create innovation, and we have some real challenges. The first area that I want to touch on, though, is I think what everybody started to realize is space is critical infrastructure. And it happens on the warfighting domain. It also happens on things like GPS. GPS drives $68 billion worth of annual revenue and touch points across our industry. Of course, we at Harris build that payload, but it's very important that we recognize it's touching every area of our society. GPS touches everything from banking to bombs and Pokemon Go and geocaching, which are games, but my kids love it, all the way to navigation. We also are seeing weather imagery that we've probably never seen before. The amount of Earth observation that we have currently is beyond what any of us have ever seen before. We've completely revolutionized the speed at which we can get weather and information about our Earth. And now we're moving on to interconnectivity. If you think about just 10 years ago, would anybody have dreamed that somebody like SpaceX would come out and say they're going to build 30,000 spacecraft and launch them around the globe to create interconnectivity? And one of the things I heard Jeff Bezos speak a while back, and what he talked about was when he started Amazon, he could not have been successful with Amazon if there was not an infrastructure like UPS, like FedEx. He had to have infrastructure. And so as he goes off with Blue Origin, he is trying to create that same infrastructure in space, and many of us are as well. How do you create that interconnectivity? Because that's what's necessary. It cannot be point to point anymore. You have to actually have a network in space that's connected, and we're on the brink of that. The second piece, after you come down to space as a critical infrastructure, is there's a huge need for space to be basically a ubiquitous kind of technology. It has to be everywhere. It has to be watching everything. We have to have situational awareness. And that has completely shifted our market in the last 5 years. From areas where we said we didn't really need any more sensors to now it is absolutely critical that we have a clear view of the world continuously every day. Nations around the globe are looking for freedom to access and freedom of operation in space. They want to make sure that they can operate. And that has created a boom in the market for us to make sure that we have coverage of the Earth. We also are looking at, we always had the big expensive satellites, but now we're starting to see the small satellite market come on. It doesn't mean that we're going to get rid of those big exquisite satellites, because quite honestly, we need them. They have a unique place in the market. But what we also need is augmentation to them. And what you're seeing is a small sat market coming on. You're seeing the hosted payload market coming on. We at L3 Harris, we have over 230 hosted payloads on orbit, and we have 22 small sats on contract with 5 different customers. This is unheard of. These kind of augmentation systems will be key for us going forward as an industry. The third thing that I think is driving this whole market is mankind is looking to the heavens to understand where we came from, to understand life and our significance. And so things like the Nobel Prize that was awarded that says only 5% of the universe is known and 95% is unknown is driving a tremendous amount of energy into the market to explore, to find out what the far reaches are. Things like WFIRST and LISA, 2 contracts that are coming out, are key to those futures and making sure that we are positioned. Fourth, it's amazing to me that after many years, the administration we have here in the US and across the globe is now wanting to go back and explore the universe with men in space and women in space. Only 27 men and women have gone beyond our Earth orbit. All of those were associated with the Apollo program, but now we're reinstituting it. Now we're going back out. So if you look at these 4 key drivers, space is critical infrastructure. We need full access and full coverage of the Earth. We're trying to understand the full universe as we look deep into our history, as well as traveling into the universe. How are we going to keep this going? I think most of us would sit here and say, you know what? There's a lot of decisions that have to be made in the next few years. And I thought I would go back and close with a couple things that we've learned from the Apollo era. Since we're celebrating 50 years of Apollo, what did they learn? The first one, especially for decision makers in this room and people who are heads of government and people who are looking at where we're headed. If you go back to John F. Kennedy when he said we are going to the moon, it created a tremendous amount of focus. And it created a tremendous amount of direction of where the industry was going. And we need more leaders who are doing that, quite honestly. You've seen it today with Vice President Pence, but across the board, what's going to be important is we stay focused. If we just spend, and it looks like disparate spending, and it's not focused spending, then it will be difficult for us to maintain this momentum. But with leaders basically setting that direction, it will be very important for us all to be aligned. What I will tell you is industry desires to be aligned with those directions, but we need to know what the directions are. The second one is we can't just go for perfection. We're going to need to go like they did in the Apollo days for good enough solutions. If we wait for everything to be perfect and we have every spec defined and everything has to be driven by a detail, that's not what's going to get us to the next level. What's going to get us to the next level is we focus on what the real mission is, and we rally around the missions that are important, and we, as industry and governments and across the board, as we partner to try to get to those missions, that's what's going to be important. Leave flexibility. Don't dictate with requirements where we should head. The third piece is we're going to have to take a lot more risk than we have in the past. Risk is a huge deal. If we take zero risk like we did in space for many years, we're not going to see the amount of movement forward as we expect to see here in the next few years. And fourth, it's going to take a village. It's going to take the globe to do this. No one country is going to do it. Everybody's got to collaborate to do this. This is a partnership that has to happen across the globe to happen. And the last thing I'd say before I close out and let you all get back to your food is change agents make this stuff happen. I'm more and more convinced there's people both in the visible, as in visible outward things and speaking at podiums like this, but it's also the people behind the scenes that make these things happen. Of course, those have been documented in movies like Apollo 13 and Hidden Figures. But what I am finding, especially in our business, is it's not the traditional people who many times come up with these innovative thoughts. It's cross-pollinating these different people and different ideas to get to where we are today. And being open to the fact that the next idea may not come from the space professional that's been in the industry for 50 years. It's going to be absolutely critical to us. That's what Silicon Valley has been teaching us. That's what some of the innovators at our business have been teaching us, is that it takes a lot more innovation to do this. It brings new ideas. It brings technical advances. If you think about where the commercial industry has helped us out, it has propelled us to this next generation. And I'm going to leave you with this thought. This is a pivotal time in the space industry. And many of you all here will be the next generation. They will look back to you all and say, you were the ones that made the difference. You were the ones that set a different direction. You made the difference. And I mean that with all my heart. There is very few times in history where you can shape the history the way we are shaping the space industry today. So again, I thank you all for coming out. Be a change agent no matter what level you are and where you are in your company or your organization, and make a difference, because this is a key time for us to show what the space community can do for the globe. And thanks for coming out, and hope you enjoyed the L3 Harris sponsored lunch.